Okay, so these were the questions. I appreciate people reaching out with them. Um, those of you who have more questions, you know that I am attached to my email, and you're very welcome to write. I will do my darnest to write back. It might take me a minute, but I will do my darnest to write back. Okay, so the question is from a BBS patient, as I understand it, from a person with BBS, um, who has mutations in BBS2. And the question was whether what is the landscape for treatment specific to BBS2 and other things, and whether we should be doing testing. I'm not sure what the testing question is. If it is genetic testing, the answer to that is we should be doing genetic testing for understanding and for helping with clinical management. And I would very strongly support the idea of that. Um, Beyond that, it really becomes a personal choice. For example, if it is a person with BBS who also has a brother or a sister, they might want to know if the brother and the sister might be carrying a copy of the mutation, say in BBS2. Not that you can do anything about it at this moment, but it's good to know. Now, the chance that the brother or the sister will also have a partner in time who also has a mutation in BBS2 is very, very, very small. However, it is not zero, because this is what happens to all the parents of all the BBS children all over the world. So it's a useful information to have. In the future, and I'm not gonna answer when, because if we do that, if I say, oh, in a 50 to 100 years, just to make sure that I have all my bases covered, which is not an honest answer, or I can say in 2 years, which is also not an honest answer because I have no way of knowing. In the future, I imagine that there's going to be some tools that we'll have that will be specific to some genes. I anticipate BBS1 and BBS10 to probably come in a little bit early, simply because there's more people with BBS1 mutations that we know of, more people with BBS10 mutations that we know of. So when you have larger populations, there's a larger motivation to study these, to develop treatments for. It's and larger numbers to do clinical trials, things of that nature. But I think our aspirational goal, our hope, is to be able to develop treatments that will be relevant to many, many BBS patients, irrespective of what mutation they might have. So some of the drugs that we're trying to develop and we're working very hard on will be for multiple BBS genes, not for all of them, but for multiple BBS genes. And this is how we'll go. I think that people will remain frustrated for a long period of time. I think that people have a right to feel angry from the point of view that this is unfair. Why did it have to happen to me? What can we not do anything about it? The only thing I can say to everybody is this: I share the anger and the frustration. The only way I can move forward in my life when I see these things that I cannot change is to try to accept that it sucks and try to build my life around it until it doesn't suck anymore. I know it's easy for me here to sit and say, because I have the privilege of having my vision and these things. However, the disconnect sometimes, it's not a disconnect, but the families, the people with BBS, all that, are looking in their own lifetimes and hoping for change. And we share that hope. All in, 100%. However, the scientist in me suspects that we really are working for the next generation and the one after that. And I said it before during my lecture that I really feel that if what we do today benefits the next 1,000 generations of humans, this is something that we could be very, very proud of. So humanity, if I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit past the question now, but I really want to say that humanity, we've been on the planet for what, 50,000 years or something like this. We have been producing the written word for the past, 6 to 8,000 years, depending how you look at it. But I want to remind everybody that humanity is defined by what it leaves to the next generation. And I want to invite, I know this is going to sound a little disingenuous, but it is not. I want to invite everybody to think about the Colosseum, the Great Wall of China. Something closer to home, maybe, the Washington Monument. I don't know, something that you like, something that inspires you. If the people who achieve these things had the view of, should I put my energy into this because I might not see the outcome, we wouldn't have had them. The great cathedral in Strasbourg, one of the landmarks of Western architecture that millions of people have enjoyed, it took 30 generations of humans to build it. And they each believed that they were doing something for the greater good for the future. I know this is a little bit sort of pseudo-romantic, but it is actually true. We do things because we want our children and our children's children and our children's children. And when I mean our children, I don't necessarily mean just the people generated by us in our family, to have a better world, have a better life. So I think I'll stop there because I think I'm preaching to the choir here. I think everybody understands. So the second question was a little bit similar to the first, which is, what is the latest on gene therapy and BBS? I am aware. I think you'll be hearing soon through this YouTube channel from one of the investigators who is pursuing gene therapy for BBS next week or the week after. I'm uncertain. And I certainly look forward to her lecture, Dr. Drack's lecture. And she's much better equipped than I am to update everybody on where we are with that, because we are not pursuing gene therapy in our unit. And the reason being that we think gene therapy is going to be very difficult to achieve for anybody beyond the first 3 or 4 genes, because everybody else is going to be one-on-one. I also am aware of at least one new activity forming. I can't say too much about it yet. I am involved very peripherally as a sort of in a very distant advisory role, just to help out. And this is another activity that is going to try to pursue gene therapy for several BBS genes. So I am cautiously optimistic that we will have gene therapy available, but for the next generation, again, because don't forget, even if we, for example, by the time people lose their ability to see, gene therapy is not going to bring that back. It might be able to improve other aspects of the medical challenges that patients with BBS have. But if you have structural defects in the kidney, gene therapy is not going to change that. Once you have structural defects in the retina, it's not going to change that. Once you have structural problems in the development of the nervous system, which happens before we're born and during the first 2 or 3 years of our lives, it's not going to change that. I think the people who will benefit most from gene therapy are the next generation of patients with BBS who will be born, because my sense is that we will be most successful when we catch and able to offer this kind of treatment to babies, to 1-year-olds, to 2-year-olds. We might be able to offer some portional help to young adults and adults, but realistically, the biggest impact we're going to have is we will have these tools for the next generation of BBS babies. Because and this is where I think also the diagnostics is going to meet with the therapeutics, because many of you have experienced this story of not being diagnosed with Bardet-Biedl syndrome until you were in your teen years. I know some of you were not diagnosed until you were in your 30s. So this is old story now. We don't, this is now we can diagnose most people in their first 1, 2, 3, 4 years of life. So I love the idea of having these new tools coming in where you can diagnose a person very rapidly and then offer some of these new therapeutics. But it's going to be for the next generation, I think. So the next question is about which gene might be the most appropriate for, I guess, therapeutic development. And the person asking the question was asking whether it's BBS1 because of its later onset and prevalence. The first thing is it is not true that BBS1 onset is later. We do not observe any meaningful differences in onset between the different BBS genes. It is true that some people develop symptoms later than others, and the progression of the symptoms follows a different slope. For example, the rate of progression of loss of vision. But there is no evidence to suggest that this is tailored towards some genes or some of the others. However, on the second part of the question, which was which therapeutics are going to come first, again, my crystal ball broke the other day, and I haven't been able to find a crystal ball repair person. My Palantir, those of you who are Lord of the Rings fans, is also busted, and I don't know why. I keep saying Sauron, and it won't work. So I can't tell you which one is going to be first. I might try reading tea leaves, but there is no way to predict. It is true that BBS1 and BBS10 offer the advantage of having more people with mutations in those genes. And as such, there might be more people available to run clinical trials. So, but I don't want anybody to hear, oh, BBS1 and BBS10 are going to come first, because for all you know, tomorrow we might end up with a drug that is specific to BBS18 that doesn't work for anything else. And before you know it, we'll have a BBS18 therapeutic to market, and nobody will have predicted. One thing that I find truly exciting in what I do is that all this is unpredictable. Because if life in general was predictable, it wouldn't be very exciting. It wouldn't be so I think it's very important. First of all, I think it's very important for people not to identify with which gene they carry mutations in. I understand the rationale behind it, but I would like to discourage people from that. It will have utility. It's useful information. Of course, it's useful information. But a BBS2 person doesn't look to me any different than a BBS5 person. So that's the one thing. And the second thing is discovery. The method of discovery is a little bit like water. It will always try to find the cracks and seep through. And we do not know where we're going to be able to break through. For bizarre reasons, we made some significant breakthroughs. I want to, again, sort of remind everybody a little bit of old history, which is the whole big discovery that BBS was a disease of cilia, didn't come from BBS1 and BBS10. It came from BBS8. How many people have mutations in BBS8? 5? 10? It's one of the rarer BBS genes. And yet it taught us fundamental truths that help us understand the pathology of people who have mutations in BBS1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and everything. So you just don't know. So please don't put pecking orders on genes. Please don't have your favorites. Moms and dads, treat the genes like your children. There's no favorites. Maybe today you like the oldest son better, but not tomorrow, because the oldest son will do something terrible. So to those of you who are parents, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So the next question relates directly to some of the work that we do. I am interpreting the question as in about our drug discovery work and what it will take to get this move forward, tested and approved. The answer is actually very simple, but it's going to sound silly. Time, patience, money. Actually, in that order. They're all interlinked. Um, like I told people before, imagine. Let's go back to the Great Wall of China. Huh? Imagine if we started putting boulders in without being very careful about measuring them and cutting them just right and this and that. What will happen? The whole thing will collapse. So you can't say, oh, let's cut some corners here. It fits kind of. Let's move forward. You've got to be very, very careful because you end up spending 10 years and then everything collapses. So we need time. And I know it's a frustration for everybody, but we need time. The second thing is we need patience. We will continue to fail lots and lots and lots and lots. The scientific method is a process of iterative failure, learning from failure, trying again by tweaking something and succeeding and succeeding and succeeding like that. So we're going to fail lots. For all I know, the drugs that we have on this pipeline right now are not going to work out in the next. We're going to be testing them on the next set of things. They might fail. But you know what's going to happen in the fail? We're going to get very angry. We're going to, maybe cuss a little bit. We're going to be a little depressed we're going to allow ourselves to be depressed for maybe a couple of days because we just lost 2 or 3, 4 years of work. And then we're just going to roll our sleeves and go again on the next thing. Because that's how it works. And those of us who've been doing research for years are bought into the idea that you only learn through failure. And of course, it will require money. And depending how it goes, so money comes in 2 flavors. And they're both important, and I will explain. And yeah, I know some of you say, but it's all green. No. There is and I'm thinking about both things. There's the money that we will need as a research community to continue to do our work. But there's also going to be the question is how much money will be required on the part of the families to eventually pay for treatments. And I think that's equally important to me. So for example, the liver congenital, the spinal muscular atrophy, Novartis, the drug the gene therapy product of Novartis, spinal muscular atrophy is a horrible disease. Children who will get the severe form will die, unfortunately, at the age of 1 or 2. Novartis, I think it's Novartis, has come up with a gene therapy tool that looks very promising, and Biogen also has a drug. The Biogen drug costs $330,000 per year. The Novartis single dose injection costs $2 million. So I'm sure you all have that kind of cash lurking under the mattress. Alas, I do not. So the point is, I don't want to sound like Che Guevara here, but we also need to be thinking about ways to generate therapeutics that are not going to force people to choose between the health of their children and homelessness or bankruptcy. 50% of bankruptcies in the United States occur because people cannot pay medical bills. And this is not a political statement. Unfortunately, it's yet another thing that has become politicized as a tool to divide humans. But to me, people are not red and blue. People are just people. And there's going to be a real need. We will have a therapeutic for Bardet-Biedl syndrome in time. We will. It's going to happen. I don't know when. I don't know if I'm going to be alive to see it. I hope I am, because I'll be cheering, even if it's not our group who developed it. But I'll be damned if we're in a situation where we end up having soup kitchens for families with Bardet-Biedl syndrome so they can afford the pill so that their son or daughter doesn't go blind. I choose not to try to live in a world like this. And this is a difficult problem. So people can say, you know what, we're going to go and do 10K runs and we're going to go pull airplanes and this and that. And we're going to give Nico millions and millions and millions of dollars to develop the drugs. None of this will be as useful if we also do not solve the other problem, which is if we do these drugs and we get involved companies, how much are they going to cost to buy them? Will the insurance provider provide them? I know everybody's like, I don't care at this point because I'm seeing somebody that I love struggling with a disease that needs treatment. I really get it. However, and I know because I've met you, and those of you I haven't met, I can empathize that if somebody said to you, take my life and let my child be healed, you will do it. I'm with you, but we have to solve the dual problem here. So I'm thinking really long term. And poke stole the house is anybody who says, oh, yes, we've developed a treatment for Bardet-Biedl syndrome and it will cost $2 million. I find that to be offensive. I'll stop lecturing. The last thing I want to say is we all know that it sucks that we cannot be together this year because of the pandemic. It sucks for all of us. So I just want to finish by truly wishing everybody patience, because we are in for a few more challenging months. None more so when many of you have to deal with a pandemic, with homeschooling people, and with dealing with children who have additional needs. My heart goes out to you, and I wish you patience. I wish you kindness to one another, because these can be very, very taxing times. And I hope that everybody remembers that we will get past this. Things will get better, for sure. This is one thing that I will guarantee. I can't tell you when. The one thing I will tell you with no certain terms: do not listen to politicians. Just don't. I don't care which politicians, and I'm not trying to refer to one or the other. Do not listen to politicians. The purpose of politicians is to acquire votes. Listen to healthcare providers, because healthcare providers' goal is to make sure you don't get sick, and if you do, that you get better. With that, I will close. I will give everybody a virtual hug. I love you all. And let's hope that this time next year, the year next, whenever we're going to, we can all be together and celebrate the fact that we can be together and enjoy each other's company. Thank you.